let's talk about how to query the suffix array. So we know what the suffix array is, and to show you how to query it, let me bring up an example. And I'm going to use a slightly longer text this time. This text here, abracadabradad. And I'll just, rather than go through the process of sorting the suffixes, I'll just show you the finished suffix array. Here it is. And for ease of describing this algorithm, I'm also going to show you the suffixes themselves. So I'm going to draw them above like this. And just to re-emphasize, I said this in the previous video as well, the data structure doesn't actually require that we store these things. We just need to store these, right, the suffix array, which as you can see, I've laid it out left to right this time instead of top down. We just need to store this array and the text t itself, and that's all we need. Okay, so this is my suffix array for that text. You can see, for example, that the suffix at offset 0, which is the entire text, does indeed have the entire text written out there alongside the 0 element. And you can just very quickly cast your eyes across and you can see it seems to be in order. Like here's the suffix that starts with $sign first, and then here's the ones that start with A and the ones that start with B, etc. You can sort of see for yourself that it's in order. So now we want to be able to do the same sort of substring query, presence-absence query, that we know how to do already using the suffix trie or the suffix tree, but we want to do it with the suffix array. So how do we do this? How do we check if a query string P is a substring of T? Right? Sometimes we've said S and sometimes we've said P. But anyway, the query string is the thing that we're looking for. We want to see, are there any occurrences of the query string in the text? And so in order to answer this query, let's look at the suffix array and think about two properties that it has. So first of all, in order for P to be a substring of T, we see that it's going to have to be a prefix of at least one of the suffixes of the text T, right? Because the data structure contains all the suffixes of the text T, in order for P to be a substring, it also has to be a prefix of one of these suffixes, at least one of these suffixes that we see here. We used this same principle when we argued that we could answer presence-absence queries using the suffix trie or the suffix tree just by walking down from the root. Right? This time there's no root. There's not really a walking down from the root option for us, but at least this principle is the same, that if P is going to be a substring of T, it has to be a prefix of at least one of the suffixes, and here are all the suffixes. Furthermore, if there are multiple suffixes of T that share the same prefix, right, they all start with the same prefix, then they're going to have to be consecutive in the suffix array. Okay? So if they start with the same prefix, then they necessarily have to be consecutive, right? If you have the set of suffixes that all start with the same prefix, those will be consecutive in the suffix array because it's sorted, right? By definition, the suffixes in the suffix array are sorted. So all the suffixes that start with the same string should be right next to each other in that order, consecutive. Okay? So these are the two principles we use when we lay out what the algorithm is going to be. And what is the algorithm going to be? Well, whenever we go searching for something in a sorted list of items, there's kind of a default strategy that should always occur to us first, which is binary search. And we're going to do something like binary search here. Okay, so that's the vague idea. We're going to use binary search to try to find where are the suffixes that have our query as a prefix. Okay? A short aside on lexicographical comparisons, because we're going to do a lot of these here. We didn't really have to do these with suffix tries and suffix trees, but now that we're talking about suffix arrays, oh yeah, we're going to have to do some lexicographical comparisons of strings. So let me just pause and make it abundantly clear what we're doing when we're comparing two strings to see which one comes first, lexicographically. Okay, so say we have these two strings here. These are two suffixes of T, and I chose not to show the $sign here. But when comparing two strings, the strategy we're going to use is start here at the left, right, the leftmost position of both strings, and repeatedly we're going to check if the characters are equal, and if so, we advance to the right in both of the strings and keep going, and then check the next pair, check the next pair. Or if the characters are not equal, the tie is broken and we have our answer. Okay, so let's see how that works with these particular two strings. We'll start here by comparing the leftmost characters. They're equal, so the first The result of this first comparison is equality. That means we have to keep going. We have to go to the next character position to the right. Oh, look, they're equal again. So we keep going. We go for a while. We see two more equal characters there and there. Then, as we move on to the next position, we finally have the case that the character from the string A is less than the character from the string B. They're not equal. And immediately we have our answer, right? So whereas we couldn't get our answer from those equal positions, now we're at an unequal position, so we know the answer to our question. Turns out A comes before B. A is less than B. Okay? So the moment we get just past the shared prefix of the two strings, and we get the result of that next character comparison, that's when we know what is the relative order of these two strings. Okay, so there we go. That's lexicographical comparison, but the important thing to notice there is that we have to do character comparisons left to right, compare, potentially a number of character comparisons equal to the shorter of the two strings. Okay? All right, so let's actually do a query of my real suffix array that I have here. And we're going to use binary search, and at each iteration of the binary search, we're going to do a lexicographical comparison. Okay? So our query here is dad. We want to know which suffixes, if any, have dad as a prefix. That tells us whether dad occurs as a substring of t. So we're going to apply binary search. Binary search is going to iterate where at first we're considering the entire array. We're doing a comparison between our query string and the pivot in the middle, right? Whatever is the midpoint of the section of the array that we're considering. We ask, is our query less than, greater than, or equal to the pivot? And that tells us where to recurse next, whether to go to the left half or the right half, and so on. So let's start with our, sort of range of consideration, including the whole suffix array. And we look at the element in the middle, the midpoint. We'll call that the pivot. And we're going to compare our query string, which was dad, to this pivot. So if we lexicographically compare dad to that pivot string, we find that dad, this is not hard to see, right? The very first character is going to be we're going to learn that D is greater than B. That tells us that dad comes alphabetically after that pivot suffix, right? So in other words, if there are any suffixes that start with dad, they're going to be over here, right? They can't be over here, right? Because of what we just learned, comparing dad lexicographically to that pivot. Okay, so we're going to recurse on the right half. So we're going to say, okay, well, this part's not interesting to us anymore, so we're going to look only at this part and then do this again, right? So now that we are in the right half, we're going to take the pivot to be the middle element of that right range, dad there. And so now we're going to compare our pivot string dad to we're going to compare our query string dad to the pivot suffix. And DAD is greater than DAB, right? There's going to be a mismatch in that third position, and we're going to find D is greater than B. So again, dad comes to the right of that pivot alphabetically. So if there are any suffixes that have dad at the beginning, they're going to have to be over here. They can't be over here, right? So we narrow our focus even more. I'm going to recursively look at this range. Again, let's take the middle element as our pivot. We're going to compare our query string dad to that pivot. This time, right away, there's a mismatch, and we see dad comes before the pivot, right? And once we've done that, we've actually iterated the binary search all to the way to the point where there's actually only one possibility left. The only possibility left is that element, that suffix, starts with dad. And as soon as we compare dad to that pivot, we see, yes, indeed, that pivot does start with the string dad. And we have our answer, which is yes, the string dad does occur in the text, right? So answer, yes, dad does appear in the text. Okay, so we are, generally speaking, we're using binary search. The binary search is helping us narrow the space of suffixes that might have our query string as a prefix. Narrow, 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 until eventually we either prove or disprove, right? Either we do find a suffix that starts with our query, or we discover that there are no suffixes that start with our query. Okay? So that's the algorithm. How much work is it? It would be nice if this was very quick. So let's think about how much work we're doing. And when you learn about binary search, you're usually learning about binary search in a context other than strings, right? You're usually learning about binary search in the context of like a list of numbers, for example, a sorted list of numbers. And you learned that binary search requires that you do big O of log of m, if m is the length of this sorted vector, big O of log of m iterations or bisections, right? You have to do big O of log of m bisections. Bisection meaning one of those steps where you divide the remaining search space in half, right? So the number of bisections required is big O of log of m, and so often we'll just say that binary search is big O of log of m. But binary search is not just the bisections, it's also the comparison of our query string with the pivot. In binary search, the way you probably learned it originally, that comparison was assumed to be constant work, right? If you're comparing an integer to an integer, that's constant work. Here, however, we're not comparing integers, we're comparing strings lexicographically. And if you compare two strings lexicographically, the amount of work you might have to do is proportional to the length of the shorter one, right? In other words, the number of character comparisons you have to perform. In general, in the worst case, to compare two strings is proportional to the length of the shorter of the two strings. So if we think of our text as being really long, so M as in Mike, is really, really big, but we think of the length of our query, P, that has length N as in November, right? If that's really small, then the amount of time required for a lexicographical comparison of query to pivot should be thought of as big O of n, proportional to the length of the query. Okay, big O of n. So each of those bisections requires that we do one of these comparisons. So we have to take the big O of n and the big O of log of m and multiply them, so that the amount of time required overall for querying the suffix array, the way we've seen it so far, we will improve on this later, but the way we've seen it so far, the amount of time required to query the suffix array is big O of n times log of m time, right? These are two things multiplied together. The log m part comes from the bisections. The n part comes from the fact that for each bisection we have to do a lexicographical comparison. Okay? Binary search. I want to make a final point about this. Binary search can be thought of as following the shape of a binary search tree, right? So we didn't draw a tree yet, but we can. So if we imagine these iterations of binary search, we can think of it as like taking a root-to-leaf path through a binary search tree that looks like this. I drew it upside down because I have the suffixes on top, but now allow me to sort of get rid of those colors and flip it around. There we go. Now the binary search tree is above. I just want you to see that there sort of is conceptually a tree here. It's the binary search tree over the suffix array. Okay, so conceptually, when we iterate binary search, we're taking a path down from the root through this binary search tree, which becomes kind of a link to how we were doing things before, right? Before we had a suffix tree, and we thought of all our queries as sort of following a root, walking down from the root. Now we're not doing that. We're doing binary search, but we can still think of it as using the shape of a tree to help us narrow our search. And in fact, I can show you sort of a picture that suggests the relationship between a suffix tree and a suffix array. Here I've got the suffix tree and the suffix array for the same string we've been talking about, the same text we've been talking about here. Suffix tree on the left looks a little wacky because I kind of had to fit it in to a little sliver of this slide. And then suffix array on the right together with that kind of conceptual binary search tree on top of it. And you can see there's a sort of relationship between these two things, right? They're very different shapes, right? These two trees are definitely not the same shape, but they're accomplishing substantially the same thing. The suffix tree is an explicit tree. When you build the suffix tree data structure, you actually have to encode, this parent has these children, etc. Whereas when we're doing binary search on the suffix array, the binary search tree is implicit. Right? When we iterate our algorithm, we are implicitly traversing this tree, but we don't have to explicitly traverse it. We just have to, to pick the midpoint, we just have to take the range, divide by 2. We're doing just math to follow the iterations of the binary search, but implicitly it's as though we are following a path through the binary search tree. But of course, these two trees are just they have the same function. In both cases, moving down through the tree, starting at the root, is narrowing. It's a process of narrowing the space of suffixes that might have our query string as a prefix. Same thing. To contrast them a bit, recall that when we were querying the suffix try or the suffix tree with a length n query string, we just had to walk down from the root. We argued that for reasonable representations of the tree, we could do something like constant work per step, which meant that the amount of time required to query was big O of n, where n is the length of the query string. Over on the right, we've got our binary search strategy using the suffix array, which we already said is worse than that, right? We said that the query time here is big O of n times log m. The log m because of the bisections, the big O of n because of the lexicographical comparison we have to do at each step. We will later see some ways that we can improve on this, but for now, let's let this be the way we compare and contrast the suffix tree and the suffix array. They're both big O of m space, but the suffix array has a smaller constant factor. They both are, in a way, traversing trees or walking down from the root of trees to narrow the space of suffixes that might have the query as a prefix. But they have different query time bounds because the suffix tree query time is big O of n and the suffix array query time, using the query that we've learned so far, is big O of n times log of m.